The philosopher who turned wisdom into wealth. Imagine a man, a brilliant thinker, a philosopher, a skeptic, yet broke, very, very broke. In the heart of ancient Athens, where minds clashed like swords, one man dared to challenge not just the world, but his own doubts. This is the untold story of how an Athenian philosopher went from questioning everything to making a fortune, through olives. Yes, olives. Meet Thales of Miletus, a thinker, a dreamer, and, according to some, a man who was completely useless at making money. The philosophers around him mocked his lack of wealth, believing that deep thinking had no practical application. Thales, however, did not argue back. He simply listened, observed, and contemplated his next move. Philosophers gathered in discussion, laughing at Thales, dismissing him as a mere talker rather than a doer. The marketplace buzzed with traders exchanging goods, men boasting about their riches, and skeptics doubting the relevance of philosophy. Amidst all this noise, Thales smirked, keeping his thoughts to himself. He was not offended. No, he was patient. He pondered the nature of wealth and opportunity. He knew that knowledge alone did not fill one's stomach. But could it? Could a philosopher use wisdom to turn the tables, to not just think, but to act? That night, as the city slept, and only the rustling leaves and distant owl hoots disturbed the silence, Thales sat beneath the vast Athenian sky. He observed the stars, tracing their movements, making mental notes. He had long studied celestial patterns, and he saw something others did not. A shift, a sign, a pattern that suggested that the upcoming olive harvest would be exceptional. A plan began to form in his mind. The next morning he did something that surprised everyone. He visited the owners of olive presses. These presses were essential for extracting oil, but at that time of the year, no one saw them as particularly valuable. Thales, however, made an unusual request. He wanted to rent all of them, every single one. The owners, baffled but willing to accept easy money, agreed to his offer. They saw no risk in this, assuming Thales was merely another eccentric philosopher. But Thales knew something they did not. Days turned to weeks, and as time passed, the olive trees flourished. Soon, the harvest began, and it was as bountiful as Thales had predicted. Farmers and merchants rushed to the olive presses, only to find that Thales had control over all of them. The demand was overwhelming. Desperate for a way to process their olives, they had no choice but to rent the presses from him, at a much higher price. Thales, the once mocked philosopher, suddenly found himself in possession of great wealth. The same philosophers who had laughed at him before now stood in awe. They could not understand how a man so lost in thought could achieve such a feat. Was it luck? Trickery? No. It was knowledge. The very thing they had dismissed as impractical had turned the tides. As he counted his earnings, Thales smiled. He had never been interested in riches for their own sake, but he had proven his point. Philosophy was not useless. Thought had power. Skepticism, when paired with insight and action, could lead to unimaginable success. And so, the lesson of Thales of Miletus echoed through the ages. To think is powerful, but to act is transformative. Skepticism is useful, but conviction and strategy turn knowledge into wealth. And thus, Thales left a lesson not just for Athens, but for all of us. Skepticism is great. Thinking is powerful. But sometimes, action speaks louder than philosophy. The mind alone can be rich, but it takes courage to turn wisdom into gold. If you enjoyed this tale of wit, wisdom, and olives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. Who knows? Maybe the next great idea is already in your hands.